Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Hope you're all doing really well and that your new year is off to a great start. We're back with a new review, the first one of 2022, and it's going to be RP's custom training template. And the reason that I chose to review this one versus their simple training template, and I had a couple of requests for their simple training template, I chose this one instead for two reasons. The first is that it's actually a little bit more tailored towards the individual. Again, it's their custom one, so you actually pick a little bit more what you want to focus on, the muscle groups you want to specialize a little bit more. So it's a little bit more custom towards the individual. Again, it's still a program you buy online. It's not an actual online coach that you're hiring. So it's not going to be completely tailored to the individual for everything, okay? But it's still a step more towards that direction, more so than their simple training template will be. So I think that's probably a little bit better choice for most people. And then the second reason is that it's cheaper. So it's actually $20 cheaper than their simple training template. So it just honestly makes a little bit more sense to get this one and for me to then review this one because I think it'll be probably a better choice for most people. So now that we got that in the way, let's get right into the review. Now, when you first go onto their website to buy it, okay, so you have to select whether male or female and then how many days a week you want to train. Okay, so it also talks about this and gives you some hints on the choices you have to make here. So based on this, again, the number of days that you're gonna train for, pick the one that you're going to be the most consistent with, the one that you know you can do from week to week to week. So for me personally, I would choose the 4 days a week. That's the one that I chose and the one that the program spit out for me. So once you then choose that, it gives you a number of options here. Now you can choose either a preset one, like a whole body or something like that, that'll then spit out and choose what its focus is on for you, or you can actually customize it. This is where the name comes from in terms of what you want to focus on more. So you either choose no training, meaning there's no training on that muscle, it's exactly as it sounds. You choose growth or specialization. Now I recommend for, at the very least, you choose growth, and it makes this recommendation as well, unless you know there's a muscle group that you don't need to focus on at all, which for most of you isn't really going to be the case. So with this, and as they recommend as well, choose growth. Okay, now the specialization one, those are the muscle groups that you know you really actually want to focus on the most in this program. And as they mention here, you only want to choose 2 or 3 of those muscle groups at most. Otherwise, the program is going to kind of fall apart, and then it's not going to be so much specialization as it's just going to be more like an overall all-around type of program, and then it's going to be kind of pointless in the type of program this is. So it does, again, give you hints to know what to pick and how to kind of customize this a little bit. And if you are a little bit lost, you can reach out to them and they'll help you out. Okay, so for me personally, I chose to concentrate more on back and shoulders and traps and stuff like that. So again, that's just kind of something that I personally think I could work on a little bit more, so that's what I chose, okay? And I kind of wanted to see the program that would spit out to do that. And honestly, it did actually spit out a program that would focus a little bit more on those things, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But once you get the program and purchase it, okay, you do get some FAQs and a brief little booklet. It's not really even a booklet, it's like 7 pages total on basic information. So you get a how-to, which explains how to follow the program. So that includes how to choose your exercises, which I'll go over in just a minute, how to follow the program, how to determine the weight that you're going to be using, and a number of other things. And then there's another one that goes over a basic introduction of the program itself. So why they designed it this way, how it overall works. All right, and then after that, you also have a pretty extensive FAQ sheet as well. So pretty much any question that you think you might have should be answered in that list, okay? But if it's not, again, you can always reach out to them, and they should be able to answer it. Now, having said that, I think the information you get from it is a little, honestly, lacking. So if you compare it to other programs that I've reviewed on the channel, with a lot of those, you get a pretty extensive booklet that goes over all the basic principles and definitions and exercise substitution lists and a number of other things. You don't really get this. You get some of that, you get the basics, but it just still kind of feels like it's lacking a little bit in that department. Having said that, okay, any information you think is missing from it, you can get from their YouTube channel, from Renaissance Periodization's channel, okay? And chances are that they go over that specific topic or any information you want in a video on there. It's just a matter of finding it. But it still would have been nice to include it exactly in the program directly, so you have it directly in front of you right here. So you're not going around searching on their YouTube channel or anywhere else to get the information. Okay, it should have been kind of right here. So it gives you, again, the basics. You're not going to be lost. You should basically have the information that you need. And again, this is not a beginner program. It's not for novice, okay? It's for those who are intermediate to advanced. So you should have some pretty good idea on the principles and stuff like that. So you should be okay. It's just still would have been nice to have a little bit more information so you can have it, again, directly here in front of you instead of having to go find it. But now that we covered that, okay, let's go over the program itself. Now, there's honestly a lot of similar vibes that I got from this program as I did like their specialization program and their male physique program, because the overall programming principles for it is fairly similar to the other ones. And you would kind of expect that, okay? People who design programs, the other programs they design are still going to follow the basic principles that they like, that they know works. So it makes sense in this way. Okay, so like I said, I chose the 4-day-a-week one. Okay, so the way that they split up is an upper body, lower body type split. All right, and then so you can see right along here, I will show you day 1, and then I might go into day 2 a little bit as well. Okay, I'm not going to show you the whole thing again because of copyright and ethical reasons, obviously, like I've mentioned in the past. But on this day 1 here, okay, so it starts off with chest compound, then goes into 2 back movements, followed by a triceps, then biceps, then ending with 2 shoulder movements, okay? Perfectly fine right here, all right? And then for those who are thinking shoulders at the end after this, it actually does make a little bit, it does actually make sense, okay? So in this case, you're not going to be totally exhausted. And in fact, because you're having a decent amount separation from that chest compound and your shoulder movements, your shoulders shouldn't be super exhausted at that point. Okay, it's given a little bit of rest because you're doing a number of back and then some tricep, which depending on the exercise you choose, might have a little shoulder into it, but again, it depends on which one you choose. And then some biceps. So by the time you get to your shoulders, they should still be having plenty of energy to go and do the movement correctly. Okay, so there's nothing wrong there. Now, the way this works, again, is similar or almost pretty much identical to the way that you choose your exercises from the other programs that I review. It gives you a drop-down list of exercises to choose from directly. Okay, so like in this one, on the chest compound, you can choose a number of things like dumbbell bench press, hammer machine press, a number of other ones, okay? And now, in the basic booklet they provide you, it does explain here a little bit on how to choose that exercise. Okay, so obviously what you have available at your gym, or which ones you think you respond to best. Now, having said that, again, because it is an intermediate to advanced type program, you should have some idea on which exercises you respond to best. All right, so you shouldn't necessarily be guessing here. It still would have been nice for them to explain exactly how to choose the exercise that's best for you. Okay, so they basically say in there that if you're not entirely sure, don't worry because all these exercises we know do work. And there's truth to that, yes. Okay, the exercises they have here are good ones. Okay, they are going to be perfectly fine. They should work for you. All right, but it still would have been nice to have a little bit more than that in terms of explanations on choosing the specific exercise that you want to do. All right, and then the other thing I want to mention here is that, as you can see, like on this first one, you have 2 back movements back to back, all right, right after another. Nothing wrong with that, okay? It does a similar sort of thing like on the lower body day. It has 2 quad movements back to back, okay? Again, nothing wrong with that. On the back one here specifically, that's perfectly fine. You can do 2 rowing movements right after another, no issue, okay? what I would have liked to see on this first day is an option to go from a horizontal pull to a vertical pull. You don't really have this option, at least I didn't in the program that I got. So it would have been nice to have that choice. On that second day there, the 2 quad movements back to back, this is where things get a little bit more questionable, okay? So it still gives you that option where you can pick something like a high bar barbell, a high bar squat, and then the second quad movement you can choose like a front squat. So that choice doesn't really make any sense at all, okay? So it would make a lot more sense to go from like a high bar squat than to a hack squat or leg press or something like that. And most of you, again, should know to make a choice like that, okay? Again, this isn't a novice program. But having said that, the option or possibility to choose something like a high bar squat to a front squat is still there. You're still able to make that choice. So somebody out there may make that choice, and that's not a good choice to make. So what they should have done here in this case is that once you choose that first exercise, maybe they should have programmed it in some way so that in that drop-down menu, it changes a little bit so you're not able to necessarily choose something that's not going to make a whole lot of sense. Okay, so now to their credit, in that little basic information in the booklet there, it does talk about how choosing exercises that go back-to-back muscle groups, you know, don't choose something that's going to not make sense like that, okay? So don't do 2 movements that are going to be exhaustive of one another, okay? So it does provide a little bit of explanation there, but again, there's still somebody out there who could end up making that choice that isn't going to work well or isn't going to make a whole lot of sense. So, you know, the whole point of programming here is to make it easy for the individual so that they know that they're getting the right choices and that they are getting a good program that logically makes sense, right? So, again, it's not the biggest deal in the world. Again, most of you should know to make the right choices and which ones make sense. But it still would have been nice to kind of eliminate it so that possibility isn't really there. But anyway, let's get on to the other part of the programs here, which you can see once you choose that exercise, it then gives you a link to an instructional video, which is great, and those videos are well done. You shouldn't be left guessing. And again, in that little booklet, they say if you're still not entirely sure about your technique, hire an actual like powerlifting coach or something like that to make sure, like in the squat, that you're getting your technique down correctly. Okay, so you have actually somebody there to help you out. And then the other column is your estimated 10 rep max. And this is for all of the exercises. And the reason that they do this is that they then use this estimated 10 RM to then calculate the weight that you're going to use for the 5 weeks ahead. Okay, so and if I didn't mention this, it's it's actually a 6-week long program. Okay, that 6th week though is a deload week. All right, so really the program itself is more like 5 weeks. So, and I'll go over that in just a minute how it progresses. But anyway, once you do that, it then calculates the exact weight that you're going to use in that all the weeks going forward. Now, this takes the guesswork out of the weights you need not only use, but it's actually very nice to see this way. Now, the way you progress through this, as you can see like on this day 1, it tells you exact sets to do, and the number of sets stay exactly the same from week to week, and it's the same on all the other days as well. Nothing wrong with that. There's no reason for the number of sets you do to necessarily change. Progressive overload comes in a number of different ways. It's not just increasing weight. It can be the number of sets you choose, or increasing the number of sets that you do, or increasing the number of reps you do. Okay, but in this particular case, the sets are staying the same. What's increasing from week to week is the weight that you use, and then also the number of reps will change. It will progressively overload from week to week. And the way that they measure the reps here is in RIR, reps in reserve. Okay, so in this first week, it starts at 3 RIR. Well, actually, not 3 RIR. It starts at 3 reps shy of failure, actual failure. Okay, and it explains fully on how to measure this. Now, you have to be honest with this and have an actual good guess with this, because the programming itself is dependent on you answering this correctly or to the best of your ability. The other ratings here is not only the rep results that you got, but also the soreness rating and then the pump rating. And it uses those ratings to then actually change the load and the volume later on in the other weeks. So that way it's actually adjusting automatically for you. So again, if you're doing an exercise and it just really beat the hell out of you, or you didn't get the number of reps that you thought you were going to, you answer it honestly, it will in the following weeks adjust it so that it brings either that weight down a little bit so you can manage it a little bit better, or it adjusts the overall volume a little bit for you. Okay, so, and it's kind of ingenious. It's a very nice feature, and again, same sort of thing that I do in the other programs that I reviewed. Now, again, like I said, though, you still have to be honest with this, and it does talk about that in that little booklet, the information it provides you. Now, as the weeks go on, that 3 reps shy of failure stays the same in the first 2 weeks, and then week 3 and 4 goes down to 2 reps shy of failure, and then week 5 it goes to 1 rep shy of failure. So you are progressing in that way as you go along, and then do that 6 week of deload. So either way, you're always making progress. Even if you stay with the same weight the following week, okay, your number of reps you're doing should change. It'll either go up, okay, like in week 1 and 2 here, if your weight stays the same, you should be getting more reps. Even if it's just 1 or 2 more, it should be changing, okay, and that's still progressive overload. As the reps shy of failure comes down, so like goes from 3 to 2 reps shy of failure, all right, then that does mean that your rep range itself probably will actually come down a little bit, because at that point, the weight you're using is going to increase, okay? Which makes sense. This is how you want to progress, okay? But don't freak out if it shoots really, really low, because again, if it does, it automatically makes that changes, so then you can bring it back up a little bit more in the following week, okay? But even then, again, remember the research suggests that anywhere from 5 to 30 reps is a huge range, but the research is pretty sound on that. As long as you're in that range and you're encompassing that range in multiple movements, you're going to make progress on your hypertrophy, okay? So, and it counts for all that in the program, all right? So this, guys, gives you a really good idea of how this overall works. It makes sense, okay, the way that they do, the way that they programmed all of this, all right? So you're not going to be left guessing. You're going to know exactly the weight that you need to use, assuming that you did your 10 RM correctly, you estimated that correctly, and explains how you can do that. It does mention here that you don't have to spend the first week or take a week to then guess what your 10 RM to kind of test it in the gym. I see no harm in honestly doing that. I think you can do that. I'd rather honestly do that and make sure I get a really good actual estimate on this rather than left guessing a little bit. You know, it says that as long as you're fairly close, it'll still work just fine, which is true, but I'd still rather take that actual week where you'll still maintain what you have, but you'll have a pretty good idea where actual 10 RM on these movements are. Okay, and again, that's also assuming that you pick the exercises that work best for you as well. All right, so overall, guys, I like the programming a lot. No surprise there. All right, there's a couple things here that could be improved a little bit. You know, just if you have those 2 movements that are back to back, like the 2 quad movements, need to be a little bit careful in exactly what you do choose. Again, most of you should have a good idea what that is and how to make those right choices. But you know, and also make sure you are honest in your ratings after each of the programs, okay? There's a lot of people out there that honestly are not great at estimating what their actual 3 reps in reserve is, or 3 reps shy of fail. A lot of times people who do a movement and think that they were 3 reps shy of failure, in reality were more like 5 or even 6. Okay, so actually push yourself until you really truly are at 3 reps shy of failure with still good technique. Okay, that's the most important part here. All right, and then you should actually be doing the program just fine. It should be calculating for you correctly. All right, so my overall score for this, guys, is going to be a 9 out of 10. I love the program. All right, it's a great one. It can be a little tricky to choose exactly what you want to focus on, okay? So think carefully with that, all right? And then be careful with the exercises you choose, the 10 RM that you choose. Be truthful in all that, the ratings and everything. And you should have a fantastic program that should, in fact, work. Again, repeat the program itself 2 or 3 times, and they talk about this in that little booklet, all right? And then you should be seeing results from it, because overall it does make a whole lot of sense, and I liked it a lot, all right? I'm just taking the 1 point off primarily because, again, the exercise selection here can be a little tricky at some points, and then also just needs a little bit more detail in that booklet, in the explanations or the how-tos. It just feels like it's just missing some stuff with it, all right? So either way, that is my review. Hope you guys found it useful, all right? I think it's gonna be a great program for a lot of you, all right? And then I have plenty of other programs coming up that I'm just gonna be reviewing, so I will see you guys next week.